Earlier this month, we got a call from a family out of the blue that claimed they had an accomplished drag racing motorcycle from the 50s and 60s. They said the bike had gained legendary status during its racing days, and it was nicknamed Big Bertha. The problem is, nobody had seen this bike in over 50 years. We get calls about motorcycles all the time, but I have to admit with this one, I had my doubts. But after just a few minutes on the phone, I realized this could be legit. They agreed to load the bike up and head 8 hours to Wheels Through Time so we could see if it was the real deal. If this motorcycle was what they said it was, we could have just unearthed one of the most famous motorcycles of all time. Scott, how you been, bud?
I'm good. How about you?
All right, trip up was easy?
A great trip. Beautiful scenery.
So Scott's coming from Florida, and inside the trailer is a race bike that was a record-setting drag bike, commonly referred to as
Big Bertha.
Big Bertha. Now, Big Bertha was a famous drag bike raced out of Puckett's Harley-Davidson in Orlando. In the 1950s, famous drag racer Big Daddy Don Garlits challenged Harley-Davidson to a drag race, and the Puckett's crew showed up with Big Bertha. The result would cause Garlits to go back to the drawing board and redesign his race cars to make them more competitive, thus altering the course of drag racing history. Garlits would later become one of the most influential figures in drag racing altogether.
It was the Puckett boys that made him fast, because when they beat him on the track, he went back to his shop and said, "Boys, we got to do something better."
For years, Big Bertha was the fastest quarter-mile drag bike in the world and was influential in shaping motorcycle and automotive drag racing history. More on that later. But after its tenure on the drag strip, it disappeared and hasn't been seen for almost a half century. As we were digging into this trailer, the question I had in my mind is this really Big Bertha? In order to authenticate the bike, we had to roll it out of the trailer and dig into the history of its builders. Lewis and Bill Puckett. These guys were Harley-Davidson dealers dating back, even to the 1940s?
Oh, hell, before that, before World War II. Louis' wife ran the business in Orlando while Louis was in
While
World
he
War
was in World War II. So here's a little history on Puckett's. Lewis Puckett is really credited with bringing the Harley-Davidson brand to Florida. He opened his first dealership in Orlando, and after Harley-Davidson saw his early success, they offered him a deal to open 6 more stores across Central Florida.
Orlando, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, Clearwater, Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, and Florida.
The name Puckett's became synonymous with motorcycling and would have a huge influence on the future of motorcycle racing. Some of the biggest names in racing history raced out of Puckett's shop. They did everything from lightweights, little 2-stroke 125s, 165s, to some of the fastest drag racers out there, period. As we roll it down the ramp, you can see this machine is all business. But is it actually the famous Big Bertha? Unbelievable. Incredible. So guys, drag racing stuff, I mean, this is strictly utilitarian stuff. There's no glitz, there's no glam. It's base minimum, what you need to run, and that's it. So the frame is pretty stock frame, actually. I'm pretty surprised. It's a, that brake crossover's cut off, but they were 80 cubic inch, is that right? So yeah, 80 cubic inch, a homemade clutch, 415 pounds with the rider. Wow. I wonder how big the rider was or how little the rider was. Yeah, so check this out, guys. Some of the trick stuff on this bike, what you're looking at, front mount Wyco racing magneto, or actually that's an Edison, excuse me. Chain driven from the inside. If you saw the TT Racer setup that we just finished on one of the shows, really similar, slightly earlier mag here on a later engine, probably preference. The oil tank is the transmission. You don't need a lot of oil. You're only running a quarter mile at a time. Probably heat it up faster in the transmission. Kicker's deleted, all right? So they plugged that. It looks like they corked it or something. So they plugged the kicker. Here's your lines running in the oil pump. He said they did some custom machining on the pump. Tiny little Hummer peanut gas tank. Like I said, they were the Hummer pros. These guys were doing everything from dirt track racing to land speed racing on Harley's little 125 platform. Some homemade custom drop bars on a pea shooter style fork. Looks like a little homemade or some sort of spool hub with sealed bearings. A homemade clutch. I wonder what's inside of it. Because the basket's like a 36-9 basket, and then I bet the insides are all special stuff. Huge motor sprocket. This is really trick, guys. A pair of dual carb. Oh God, that's so cool. So they've like completely, you know, on a linker, you got a high speed and a low speed, right? This one here is your low speed needle, and that actuates with your choke right here. This here's your high speed needle. They've deleted them both. I mean, gone. Soldered them up. This one they plugged and staked, and then they run the high speed adjustments right here, which is a lot like a 20s and early 30s Harley racing carburetor. Is just runs. That's why I'm looking in here earlier and there's not even a main nozzle in there, and it's because they were using this to emulsify the fuel rather than a standard Harley main nozzle. See, those are the tricks we were talking about. These things were set on kill mode, guys. I mean, fast as you can possibly make a bike, as light as you can make it. Like we said, 80 cubic inches. They said they were running this on benzene and methanol fuel, I think, which we think we know how to build fast stuff, but these guys did it every single day. So for us to even think about we could go as fast with the same equipment that they were going fast with, it ain't happening. These guys were leaps and bounds ahead of where we're at now. You know, there's nothing extra. I mean, this is as light as you can make one. Twist grip throttle here. Oh, that still works really nicely.
Don't flood it.
Don't flood it. No accelerator pumps on this one. And then look at this slick. This thing is, it's a Firestone, probably a Deluxe Champions, and then recapped it. So they just vulcanized this big monster piece of rubber and then shaped it. Shifter here, it's probably 1 speed. What a special motorcycle. Little history, Puckett's, they were going fast and racing since the beginning. Dealer before World War II even, but in the 1950s they got hooked up with Dick O'Brien. In the 1950s, Puckett's teamed up with speed guru Dick O'Brien to hone in their racing game. Whether racing on the dirt, Daytona Beach, or the drag strip, Puckett's and O'Brien set the bar for speed and helped develop some of the fastest bikes around. Their experience and teamwork culminated with Big Bertha, a 1949 Harley-Davidson panhead dragster built to run on nitromethane. Now this is where the story gets interesting and the detective work gets really heavy. In 1957, the Harley-Davidson Motor Company hired O'Brien away from Puckett's to head up their factory racing program. Over the next 30 years, he was integral to each and every Harley-Davidson racing success. It was in those same early years of O'Brien's career at Harley that a new name in racing was leading the pack, Carroll Ressweber. Born in Texas, Ressweber moved to Milwaukee and became Harley's new ace in the hole. Ressweber captured 4 consecutive Grand National Championships for Harley-Davidson under the stewardship of his own tuner, Ralph Byrne. At the time, that was an accomplishment that was unheard of. Now I know this story is lengthy, but follow where I'm going. In 1958, Ressweber and Byrne were preparing for the annual beach race in Daytona, and O'Brien hooked them up with none other than Puckett's to use as a home base. While there, the crew chronicled their trip through photographs which are now housed in the Wheels Through Time library. See, in 1990, my dad actually purchased the entire contents of the Ressweber collection out of tuner Ralph Byrne's garage. This included the entire fleet of Ressweber race bikes, parts, and you guessed it, photographs. In the hundreds of photos from the collection, there were 2 shots of a panhead drag racer at Puckett's shop. Now these photos have never been seen, but after taking a closer look, the bike is identical to the machine that sits in front of us. I mean, virtually everything is the same as the bike sits today. Same engine, same exhaust pipes. Transmission's the oil tank, same skinny little front end and narrow handlebars. Undoubtedly, this is the same bike as in the photos. I mean, the only difference I see is the rear tire and the gas tank decals. So after we conclusively decided that this was actually Big Bertha, I started wondering, what would the future of this machine be? It's been decades since Louis Puckett passed away, and when he did, he left the bike to his brother Bill, who kept it hidden away all those years. After multiple conversations with Lee, Bill's widow, the family actually decided to donate the bike to Wheels Through Time Museum. We could not be more excited.
I have been on Bill since I met him to get this thing out and show it. This is St. Pete history. This is Orlando, Florida history, and he would not bring it out of that back room and show it. And everybody I tried to get involved, even after he passed away, I tried to get people involved to get it out, show it to people. This is history. It needs to be seen. And It didn't happen until she got a hold of you and you made it happen. This is where it belongs. It was supposed to be this way.
God, I can't thank you enough for coming up and dropping
Oh,
this
believe me,
off.
it's
I
my
hope you
pleasure.
here for the rest of the day.
It was my honor, yeah. And we will be here all day.
Awesome. Guys, come check it out. Big Bertha right here at Wheels Through Time.